Hey team, this is Nathan from RunDreamAchieve.com. Hope you all are doing well. Today's topic I wanted to go over, I wanted to make a video on how do I run longer at the same pace. And pace sustainment is definitely a huge hurdle that all of us as athletes, whether you're a middle distance runner or you're a long distance runner, that we have to handle. We have to be able to sustain pace for our race distance and minimize the amount of slowdown effect that occurs in the race. And it's a huge puzzle that takes time, it takes effort, it takes studying what the best middle to long distance runners do in order to mimic what they do and get similar results, at least aim for similar results. Relaxation is key. And, as I talk about in other videos, it's very important to make sure that as you're training, as you're preparing, stay as relaxed as you can. You don't want to waste any amount of mental or physical energy that you could better be putting toward your race. And so, this question of how do I run longer at the same pace definitely takes an athlete that knows what he or she needs to be doing on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis to be able to sustain pace for longer periods of time. Of course, you have to train below your goal race pace, whatever that is. If you're somebody that's trying to break, a 2-hour half marathon, you have to maintain 9:09 mile pace or 5:41 kilometer pace for those 13.1 miles or 21.1 kilometers. So if you're doing too much of your weekly volume at paces that are, 10 minutes to 10 minutes and 30 seconds per mile pace, if you're doing like 90 to 95% of your weekly volume at those particular paces, it's going to be very hard for you to sustain 9:09 mile pace or 5:41 kilometer pace for a half marathon. So one of the best ways to run longer at the same pace is to train at paces that far exceed the type of pace that you're aiming for in your races. It's easier said than done, but if you first focus on those 3 to 4 weeks of easy, relaxed base mileage where you're not focusing so much on what pace per mile you're running or what pace per kilometer you're running, but you're just focused on building fitness before you start moving into an 8, 12, or 16-week block of training, you're going to set yourself up for success because first you're building the foundation of your training. You're not just jumping into fast, hard workouts. In order to maintain race pace for longer periods of time, you first have to build the foundation first of your build-up, regardless of what event you're training for, whether that's a mile, 5K, 10K, 10-miler, marathon, half marathon race, or an ultra marathon. You first have to build that before you start jumping into speed workouts and tempo runs. Holding pace longer, it's a combination of a lot of things you have to do right. You have to make sure that, again, you're extending the amount of time you train at your anaerobic threshold, your tempo effort. If your tempo runs are too short, especially if you're training for longer distances, of course, you're going to get a physiological boost from that type of workout, but at the same time, it's going to be very hard to sustain pace because, again, you're not spending enough time and enough duration at your anaerobic threshold. If you're neglecting speed training, if you're not focusing on doing a VO2 max workout per week, and you're running too aerobically throughout the week, it's going to be, again, very hard to maintain and sustain race pace for longer periods of time. So, the key workouts I recommend to all of my athletes that either invest in themselves and they buy a training plan, or they have monthly coaching with me, or invest in one of my running courses. We always talk about the importance of first laying that foundational base of mileage for 3 to 4 weeks, then start doing one tempo run per week, one VO2 max workout per week, which is a speed workout that might be 12 400s or 6 1-mile repetitions on the track. Maybe it's repeat 2 miles or repeat 3 miles on the roads. We focus on that. Doing other types of anaerobic type of workouts that aren't quite as VO2 max, effort, but like I talk about the anaerobic threshold, your tempo run, doing a combination of all of these types of workouts. Doing faster, varied pace long runs. You're not just running long, slow, easy every single weekend, but you're mixing up the paces of those long runs so that you're, again, running at a higher heart rate for a longer period of time, and you're running above your aerobic zone. You're running more close to your threshold zone at that type of effort, that's going to help you to sustain pace for longer periods of time. You know, if maybe you're somebody that's trying to run a 2:36 marathon, you know, or running a 2:30 marathon. Maybe you're trying to run a 40-minute 10K. Whatever that pace that you're going for is, if you're spending too much time during your weekly volume running too aerobically, it's not going to, it's, again, you're going to build a great deal of fitness. You're going to be very strong endurance wise, but anaerobically, to be able to minimize the amount of lactic acid and being able to clear that lactic acid faster than it's building up and improving your body's lactate tolerance, you have to train more frequently at or below your goal race pace. You know, I've talked about this in other videos. It's very important to study what the best middle to long distance runners do. And what they do is they spend about 40% of their weekly volume at or below their goal race pace. So of course it's going to, you know, if you ever watch these athletes on TV or maybe in your local area, you know, your top athletes, they make it look easy for a reason. They have spent sufficient time training for longer periods of time at the anaerobic threshold, the point where we start to build up lactic acid. And they've also spent, you know, a great deal of time also focusing on training at their VO2 max effort. So again, that's training at, you know, right around 90 to 92% of your maximum heart rate. So again, if you're running too aerobically each week, you're going to, of course, you're going to build a great deal of endurance, which is still very important when it comes to racing. But running easy and racing are two different things. So you have to keep in mind the importance of training well below your goal race pace, but not doing it so often that you become fatigued as well. You have to focus on all the other fundamentals that go into running fast over long periods of time or short periods of time. If you're training for maybe an 800, a mile, you know, maybe you're a track athlete and you're training for the 5K or the 10K on the roads or on the track. In order to sustain that pace and be able to clear lactic acid and be able to handle higher amounts of lactic acid effectively, you have to make sure that you're not just running long, slow, and easy every single weekend. You're not just running, you know, 90 to 95% of your weekly volume too aerobically. So I hope that makes sense. This is the types of strategies and tactics that I used over the years to help improve my times in various distances from the mile all the way up to the 50K. I mean, I even did a 50K training for the 2011 Monumental Indianapolis Marathon in training. So again, focus on the real important key fundamentals. Longer, especially if you're training for longer distances. If you're training for a 10K, half marathon, or marathon, get that tempo run out to, you know, at a minimum of starting off minimum around 3 miles and extending that out to around 10 to 12 miles in length. Again, because it's going to help improve your body's lactate tolerance. You're going to be able to run at faster paces. Your heart is not going to have to work as hard, especially as it did early on when you weren't as anaerobically fit. And don't be in a rush. It's going to take time. It's going to take patience on your part in order to get faster over your chosen distance and to be able to sustain your race pace longer than your competition. Watch your pacing in the races as well. Do not try to win a half marathon in the first 3 miles of the race. Okay, even if somebody's taken off, and you know, runners do that all the time. We take off, we get too hyped up early on in the early stages of our mile, in the early miles of our races, and then we pay for it in the latter stages of the race. I know because I made the same mistake earlier in my career. But as I grew in the sport, became more knowledgeable about the events that I was racing in, especially in the longer races, I made sure that I got out aggressively, but not so aggressive that I was going into oxygen debt too early in the race. Make sure that you're paying attention to your pacing. Again, you want to think strategically, you want to prepare strategically so that you get better results by using leverage. You want to work smarter than your competition, not necessarily harder. You know, like I've talked about in other videos, the best distance runners, the best middle distance runners are not always the hardest working athletes. You know, I've seen athletes that are running 100 miles a week that don't get the results that athletes that are running 40 to 50 miles a week get. So it's about using leverage. Leverage simply means doing more with less. You know, and as I've talked about in other videos, if you've watched the channel long enough, you know, I talk about working smart and working hard. So keep these fundamentals in mind, and I know that you'll be able to be more successful in your races. Make sure to leave me a comment below in the comment section. If you're brand new to the channel, hit that bell icon and the subscribe button so when I make new videos, you'll be notified of it. Give me a like too if you can. I'd appreciate the support. It helps more viewers see these videos, helps with the YouTube algorithm, and I definitely really appreciate all of the comments as well as the support that you all give to this channel and to RunDreamAchieve.com. So I hope this video was helpful for you. I wish you all the best in your success, in your races, and in your training. And like I said, keep these fundamentals in mind, and I guarantee you, you will start hitting personal bests. So I wish you all the best, and I'll talk to you in the next video.